Happy New Year from Get a Grip on Lighting. On today's show, we have the great and powerful Al Uszynski of Inside Lighting. Al is a seasoned lighting industry professional with a career spanning sales and management roles at several well-known lighting controls manufacturers. Today, he serves as the publisher and editor of Inside Lighting, North America's most visited media site for lighting industry news and information. Al is also one of the many recurring guests that Greg and Michael cherish here on Get a Grip on Lighting. Cheers to you, Al. I got my bottle of champagne. Before we get to that, though, I got to pour out a glass for myself here, Greg, and you got to go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com.
That's right. You should be at it right now in 2024. In 2025, you get after it even more with Keystone and their Smart Loop control package. Bluetooth enabled wireless controls. You can do it through an app on fixtures, for a variety, anything you need from strips to troffers to cans. I just worked on a project today that involved them. Great product, very easy to use. Smart Loop.
Smart Loop, KeystoneTech.com. Do you have light bulbs in a warehouse? Do you have light bulbs in a warehouse? You need to join the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. This is your crucial shield, NAILD.org. We have a convention. We got control, super amazing certification for controls coming out. We're the top G's of lighting. You got to join NAILD if you got light bulbs in a warehouse. And Greg, don't be a chump, man. No.
Nope.
Got to go to
2025.
Light Fair, buddy. Light
May
Fair
4th
in
through
May
the
in
8th.
Vegas. That's right, May 4th through
Gotta
8th.
get there.
Cheers,
North
Al
America's trade
Uszynski.
show.
Happy New Year.
Michael, Greg, Happy New Year to you. Happy 2025. Cheers. I'm going to take a quick sip. And guys, I can't believe it's 2025. We are
Woo.
in the back half of the 2020s now, a decade that started with the global pandemic, the Netflix series Tiger King, and the Free Britney movement. So who knows what kind of insanity we are going to see on the second half of this decade. To set the scene for those people who might just be on the podcast listening, we have Michael, Greg, and me. We're each wearing our glitzy 2025 novelty New Year's Eve glasses. And I'm here with the lighting industry crystal ball, giving some extra oomph of clairvoyance to these great lighting predictions that we're going to dig into. And we are sipping mediocre champagne at the same time. I can't wait to dig into these predictions. We had 12 and a half lighting predictions
Speak
from
for
some
yourself.
of the greatest minds.
Speak for yourself. I have a nice bottle of Prosecco right here. I'm not drinking champagne. I prefer Prosecco. But speak for yourself. This is actually a decent bottle. Okay, thank you very much. But carry on now. Take over the show.
No worries. No, I am doing, yes. I will let you speak in a moment. And I'm drinking my mediocre champagne here. Michael has higher end Prosecco. I too am drinking Prosecco. It's Borrasca, something called Borrasca. But in any case, guys, Happy New Year. I'm looking forward to digging in, debating, and dealing with Michael's curveballs and hot takes, because that too is a prediction annual event here in the lighting podcast for the predictions for the new year. Guys, thanks for having me on. Happy 2025.
Happy 2025. Greggy, you kick it off. We're talking
We're ready.
Sank Pal. Go.
Yeah, so this is fun. I don't know how many years in a row of doing this, but I love it. The glasses are cool. Make it a little harder to read, but I can do it. You're ready. Here we go. So the first prediction we have is from Sank Paul of the president of Acuity Brands Lightings and Controls. He wrote, in the coming year, we'll see a heightened focus on product vitality and service excellence driving customer decisions. Embedded controls will play a crucial role in this technology evolution as customers focus on enhancing operational efficiency and enabling real-time decision making. He's saying overall it's going to boost productivity and make it better and greater success overall for everyone. So we're talking embedded controls and light fixtures. We actually kicked off the show with the Keystone Smart Loop, not to throw another hat out there, but that's an example of one. And I can tell you from personal experience that I was a little skeptical of it, but it is starting to take off, and I feel it. I'm seeing, a customer that I dealt with here in my local market that we did a project with embedded controls, and they have another location, halfway across the country that they want me to work with them because I know how the control system worked at this other facility. So they're starting to look at it and saying, okay, I'm going to put this together at every one of my plants now. And that gave me a great opportunity. If I would have just sold them light fixtures without controls, anybody could have done that. But when you have that control knowledge background, you get more sales. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, I think Al is riding this wave is not going to lose a lot of steam. I think this round of lighting controls is here to stay. There's not going to be a bust. It's not going to be a boom, but there's going to be steady growth moving forward. And I think Sachs hitting the nail on the head.
When I look at these predictions, I try to absorb what the individual is saying, but I also look at the person, what company they work for, what's their role. And I wonder why, of all the topics they could talk about, why are they talking about
Mm.
this? And I try to read between the lines of what they're saying. In the first part of his comment, he mentions something called product vitality. That's manufacturer speak for a certain percentage, a significant percentage of a manufacturer's sales coming from products that are launched in recent years. An example of this would be if a company had a goal to have their last 30% of their total revenues come from the last 3 years of new product launches. So when he follows the product launch or the product vitality with the embedded controls, it tells me that there's a real focus there at Acuity.
Mm-hmm.
Combine that with the fact that there's no mistake that Zach St. Paul is in this role. He's been in this president role for less than 6 months. He's been with Acuity since April of 2021. And he doesn't come from a background of $10 downlights and $30 wall packs. He comes from a background of building automation and home automation with key executive roles at Honeywell and Residio, 2 leaders in those fields. So when he's talking about embedded controls, I'm thinking that there's a bigger thing at play here. They already have a portfolio and a suite of these products, but it sounds like they're going even further in on this technology. Like you said, it's here to stay. I'm not going to bet against Acuity Brands or this $3.6 billion division that SAC leads. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue to grow and invest in this sector.
I think you're up, Al.
Cool. So prediction number 2 is from Colleen Harper, who is the CEO and executive director of the Illuminating Engineering Society. She says, in part, that we'll continue engaging in convergences where smart systems, AI, and sustainability inspire how to create adaptive lighting environments. The industry will prioritize honing in on goals for circular economy principles and decarbonization efforts into clearer paths of information sharing. Education will become even more crucial for lighting professionals to expertly navigate these technological advancements. Greg, what do you say on that?
My initial reaction is that that lighting may be more difficult to sell in the future, and I like that because I consider myself a lighting professional, and I want to keep I am keeping this going. I kind of want the people that were in it just to make a quick buck out, and they're starting to get out, and I feel it, and now even more so as we advance further in technology and getting into how to human behavior with lighting and how human health we talk about all the time. And if it actually will take off and when it actually makes sense, you really are going to need a professional to work with you on those lighting systems. And that's what I am. And that's what you guys are. So we're here to stay. Get rid of the scrubs.
I see here she says the industry will prioritize honing in on goals for circular economy principles. You know, if the IES is going to drive that, that would be a huge relief. But I'm going to tell you from the trenches, that would be a 180-degree turnaround, Al. Because right now, this industry is less circular than it's ever been in the history of the lighting industry, electric light. We are going fast and furious towards a disposable fixture model. Something goes wrong, you throw the light fixture out and you replace it. And so when she's saying honing in, I think Colleen is 100% right. We need to hone in on these circular economy goals, and she's speaking from the executive director nonprofit position. And I agree with her, but what I would add to that is that we need to realize that we're going in the completely other direction right now, and that we're going towards a disposable fixture models, what I often call in the podcast certified garbage model, where within 5 to 10 years, every LED light fixture is out and you just simply have to replace it. So I agree with Colleen's prediction, and I also agree with the use of the term hone in. I think she's right about that. We need to hone in on that. So it's over to me, Lauren Dandridge, principal of Chromatic. In the beginning part of her prediction, she's talking about the human factor and some of the unrest in the world and how the world kind of seems like chaotic right now. And her prediction is that external influences will force a reckoning with ourselves and how we move through industry systems we have in place. Procurement, hiring, business development, and more will have to adjust to the new political and more personalized business climate we are entering, Al.
Yeah, Greg, Lauren is a very smart, very talented lighting designer who's also been a very vocal advocate for a number of lighting industry initiatives that are positive, and also including diversity, equity, inclusion. So she herself is a minority, and she uses some strong language in this prediction. The entirety of it you didn't read because it's rather long, but she uses the following phrase: "Testing the humanity of our industry, global
Mm-hmm.
unrest, external influences will force a reckoning with ourselves." And I'll admit that I might not fully grasp the weight of what Lauren is saying, but
Mm-hmm.
I experience and see the industry, differently than she might. And same thing can be said for not just the industry, but for the world. So in a highly connected industry like lighting, where people really matter, and she's expecting maybe some scale back in the personal side of things that might turn us to bear down into some more limited resources. The personal connections matter, and having those personal connections work. And one thing relating to the diversity and the unrest, there's pushes where not just the suppliers and not just rather the manufacturers and design firms and others are looking for kind of this balance of diversity. There's actually suppliers. I'm a supplier of advertising services to a major multi-billion-dollar corporation. And earlier today, I received an email asking me to fill out a form, asking if I was a woman-owned enterprise or a veterans-owned enterprise. But you know what else? There's actually questions on there about other things relating to being a minority-owned or a LGBTQ owned enterprise as well. So I think this global unrest, the interesting things that she brings up, I don't know how much of it will seep into the lighting industry and create this unpredictable aspect of things, but I enjoy hearing her perspectives, and I hope that we have smoother roads ahead than she might be anticipating.
Yeah, and I mean, you said it well. It's a big one to take on. The thing that I get out of it, though, is this personalized business climate. Is I do
Mm,
feel that to
mm,
some degree that it's becoming more of that.
mm.
You know, business is about people at the end of the day. It's not always about the product or the service you're doing, but it's about the people you're working with.
Mm.
And I think that's even stronger today than it was, 20 years ago when I started
Mm.
with mining. Next one, my friend, Mike's friend, Cory Schneider, president of Lighting Unlimited.
Yo, Cory.
He wrote, yeah, so he talked about the LED age out business is going to become more relevant in 2025 due to the fact that LED boards installed 8 to 10 years ago will begin burning out past their L7D useful life, creating the need for major capital upgrades. He talked about the movement of right to repair has become relevant in the industry as well. He talked about the importance of nail distributors and building value with this. So I'll comment on first. This is something that I've actually brought up a number of times on the podcast in years past. I'm not saying Cory stole it from me. This is a great idea, but I've asked a lot of manufacturers that come in that same question. Okay, your LEDs are going to continue to last forever. And if you put a new driver in, what is it? Is it at 30% light loss, when you put that new driver in and it'll just keep going on? And then I also think about, I know I'm random here, but the selectability, lumen selectability, color selectability. Are they different chips? Sometimes they are, sometimes they're blends of them. But are they going to say, okay, at 100-watt output, you're at L70, but if you flip that switch to 130-watt, do you have to start over at the 100? And then there's a lot of different, and colors too. Is it L70 of the 27K and you're still at 100 of the 5K? A lot of questions I have on this, and I've never gotten a clear answer. But it is going to become a problem that LED lights we installed will still work, but are not going to give anywhere near the light they had. So we got to fix that.
Yeah, I think Cory's wrong. I think we're going to accelerate towards a disposable fixture industry. Um, I don't think people are going to try to repair the stock of LEDs that we have in our electrical infrastructure in North America right now. I think they're just going to say that is garbage, bye bye, and throw it out. So I don't think that Cory and I are going to argue about this at the NAILed convention in September next year, Greg, because I'm going to be on the panel with him and I'm going to test why he thinks this is true and why we just have to, or my position is going to be, Al, that we have to accept that all that crap out there is certified garbage and it needs to go to metal recycling.
Michael, you've commented on this twice now because this topic has come up twice in the short time we've been on already. And I would tell you is that I think you and Cory agree, as do I. And my prediction actually touches on something related to this, on the underlying pain points. And you articulated them great earlier. And, because years ago, right of repair wasn't an issue we cared about in the fluorescent era for those of us who grew up in that, right? Is if your light bulbs go out, you put in new T8 tubes.
The
If
lighting
you want
industry
to,
was an example of right to repair. It was an example of how to have a repairable infrastructure.
and you do the magnetic ballast upgrade to the electrical ballast, and those ballasts were accessible in most cases, and there was still a payback that you could point to for that to happen. So I think a lot of it goes down to the economics of it is what's driving this disposable aspect of it. You look back at the 1980s, a TV set in the 1980s cost the average family 2 weeks of income. Today, it's half a day's income. Your flat panel goes out. You don't repair it. There's no such occupation as a TV repairman anymore. You throw it in the ocean and you buy a new one. And that's what we're doing with light fixtures as well. So I'm hopeful that this changes. I was just in Hong Kong a few months ago, and I saw advertised in a booth $6.99 2x2 flat panels, DLC listed, they claimed, for $6.99, color tunable 2x2.
I just sent Greg an email. Yesterday, Greg?
Yeah, it was.
Where I had a guy in my office who I think it was $12, $14, and $16 Canadian landed for 2x2, 1x4, 2x4, landed here, and for a couple bucks more, I could have the name of my company on the box, DLC, UL listed, color selectable, wattage selectable, 120 to 347 volt.
So that's the
Garbage.
economy.
Bye-bye.
That's the economy that doesn't allow this to happen. For $3,500, you can have 500 of these shipped from China. You have that much money in your left pocket right now, Michael, and it's chump change. It's chump change. So I like Cory's spirit. We're all feeling those pain points, but it'll be interesting to see how this evolves. Next, we have Tom Thompson, who is the CEO and founder of SCI Lighting Solutions, a major lighting agent that serves Southern California from LA to the Inland Empire all the way down to San Diego. He says, as we move into 2025, the construction economy will experience new signs of growth in Southern California. The demand for integrated controls and luminaires will further drive growth. He also predicts further consolidation in agent territories, along with an expansion of other non-lighting division into materials and other electrical categories. Agents will continue to offer greater service packages as well. Lastly, he sees more consolidation among lighting and electrical manufacturers, as several might be shutting down their operations as well. What are your thoughts on this, Greg?
Yeah, so I think that the Southern California part I can't comment on, but sure, they're going to maybe have some growth there. But the agent side of it, I'm seeing it, in our market, and kind of as I read a lot of your publications, Al, talk about that too, consolidations and things coming together. So yeah, I do think that's going to happen more and more. It's going to get interesting though as they do. There's so much crossover with the different manufacturers, is how they partner with the manufacturer they do and how they lock that in. So I think and then as far as if they have a role, yes. I mean, I know Mike is going to have an opinion about agents, but I do see a role for them as long as they know their product better than people selling it. And unfortunately, that's not always the case in my market, where the distributors, we kind of have a good feel of the product more so than our manufacturer rep, our agent. So yeah, if you're going to be an agent, be smart. Be smarter than the people selling it. Understand your product forward and backward.
The agents can't sell to lighting distributors. The problem is that lighting distributors know so much about lighting that agents have nothing to do, right? Usually a good lighting distributor that's dealing with a company knows more about the company's products than the employees at the company or the agent. Okay? I'm just going to throw that out there. The second point, consolidation. Yeah, we're on the second half of the mountain. The boom is over. Hangover's done. Everybody feels better. They're looking around and they're saying, my house is too big. They're saying, I need to move. I need to move in with my mom because, I'm broke or whatever. So you're going to see consolidation for sure. I think Tom Thompson is correct largely in his predictions. Julio Pedota, partner at Schuler Shook. I hope I pronounced the company name right. He's talking about AI in this prediction, and I find it might be a touch early for next year. You know what I mean? But he says that we all have heard about AI being a very powerful tool, and it is. In fact, very, very powerful. I predict the lighting industry will help the AI industry develop accurate lighting models that will answer just about any question the public wants to know about lighting design. I think he's 100% correct. And then he follows it up with that, yeah, but they're still going to need people to interpret that information, find products that are going to work, arrange the installation, and everything else. Greg, I mean, sorry, who's that? Oh, Al? Who cares if ChatGPT lays out somebody's pot lights for them? Great. That means more
Yeah,
sales for me.
I think I think both things can be true here. So I think when I look at AI, I see it as a tool, not as a replacement. So the real people that progress in their careers, the real companies that progress in their offerings, are going to embrace AI as a partner to help them provide better products and services, not as a replacement of jobs and people and other things. So you mentioned the ChatGPT thing, Michael. Let me go a little off script here and just pull up a couple of analogies with this. So lawyers will still need to be lawyering in the courtroom, writing those documents and taking those angles and the strategy, but they can rely on AI to help with some of the more mundane things that maybe a paralegal would do. Pilots, same thing. Navigation and safety can be aided by AI, but they're going to still need to land the plane and deal with emergencies as they happen. Doctors, the AI can help them diagnose and do things in the surgery room that hasn't been done before, but they're still going to need to make decisions in complex surgeries. They're still going to need to have that empathy when they talk to the patients. Now, like you just said, Michael, for the simple stuff, like that rash you told me about earlier, Michael, you can get like a nice little, the doctor can just get you a nice little over the counter solution and be done with it. And then bringing this to lighting now. So yeah, so Julio's firm, they did a huge renovation at O'Hare Airport, one of the busiest airports in the world, that took years and it was complex. And yes, you are going to need a highly capable architectural lighting design firm to help with an amazing project of that size and scope. However, the nail salon in nearby Schiller Park that has 12 2x4 holes in the ceiling, I agree. There could be some, maybe not ChatGPT, but some easy way for someone to point a camera at a ceiling and it spits out a few different solutions that could work. So if the end user is getting more enabled by quick solutions and it's better service than they can get, then go for it. Let's do it.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't think I'll comment any further. Al said it well. It is a tool and
Yep.
it will be used. So let's do it. The next one, Gabe Arnold, Senior Systems Engineer at PNNL. He said 2025 will be a watershed year for standards-based lighting controls and interoperability. It means multi-vendor systems that seamlessly integrate and connect with other building systems, unlocking new value streams that have been a challenge for the U.S. lighting industry. And then basically to sum it up, they're saying that they're going to get controls to be able to work with each other. I think we are starting to see that to some degree in lighting, but there's a long ways to go, and I wonder about all the existing stuff that's out there and that has it. How are you ever going to fix that in the future? You're going to have to go back to the old one, and the old one's going to be gone. Then you're going to have to go to the new one. So there's got to be a point where it happens. Is it going to be this year? I don't know.
Listen, uh, I think Gabe Arnold has his finger on the pulse. Yeah, I think I agree with him 100% that we are on a steady stream of growth for lighting controls. And they're going to become more and more important, and we need to get better and better at them. So I 100% agree with Gabe. I don't know if it's a next year thing again. Maybe it's a 5-year prediction or a 10-year prediction, but I think Gabe's right, Al.
He's definitely got a point here. And I was hired by the worldwide leader in lighting controls in the 90s. That's what got me out of college and into this industry. And back then, Dolly was a thing back then, but it was not as reliable as it is today. In fact, lighting designers used it, stayed away from it because there were concerns about it. Now, today in 2024, many decades or a few decades later, it's highly reliable. Dolly 2, Bluetooth mesh. He also mentions Kasambi in his prediction. These open protocol systems definitely work. Now, the manufacturers, of course, they want to steer you to the proprietary systems sometimes, and those can also be very good and offer different things that maybe these open systems don't. But he's definitely moving in the right direction. I like this, and the other thing I like about this, guys, is that this fosters more competition. The
Yes.
barrier to entry entry is lower. So you
Yes.
can have some smaller guy come on the scene and do something really cool and groovy that helps provide unique solutions in a different way based on these protocols. So that's
Yeah, I
my two
agree.
cents on the very smart prediction by Gabe Arnold. Let's transition to another lighting designer. By the way, I have a lot of lighting designers on to this year's list. I did reach out to some people that get more involved in the retrofit and distributor side of things, but sometimes I invite 20 to 25 people, and not everyone participates as I would hope. So she's yet another design firm, highly capable out of the Pacific Northwest. Another AI prediction, the third mention of AI here.
Hmm.
As AI continues to advance, 2025 may mark the beginning of its significant impact on lighting design calculations and modeling. Machine learning offers the potential to enhance accuracy, predict outcomes in more complex environments. As the technology evolves, it will empower designers to focus more on creativity and innovation while relying on AI for technical rigor. Greg, what are your thoughts on that?
Sometimes I just need the technical rigor, you know. And if, if the AI can do that for me, I don't want to take the lighting designers out of business, but I think there's got to still be a need for them to use their creativity. But I need that technical rigor, so I want to use AI now, because I've thought about having it in house, our own design team at times, and I usually end up outsourcing to a lot of manufacturers. So if it has that power and it can accurately put together layouts, I'll use it all day.
I think she's right. I think it's only a matter of time. Um, John Lamontagne, VP of Sales, Lighting and Controls at Leviton Manufacturing. My summary of what John is saying here is that we're going to move to a farm to table kind of economy for lighting. That's my summary of his prediction. In 2025, as fewer young people join the construction trades, we will continue to see a push for more simplified control systems. This will include, but not be limited to, LLL lighting, luminaire level lighting controls, wireless and pre and app-based commission systems. Any system that reduces labor hours will win the day. Also, given the recent threats of increased tariffs, we will see more onshoring of controls products to meet supply and market demands. Al.
John Lamontagne comes from a manufacturer's perspective here, and he offers a potpourri of products. And Leviton makes both controls and luminaires. So, he talks about construction hiring, construction trade hiring, and project commissioning. I'm going to focus on the last aspect where he brought up is the tariffs. And, we're still, a few weeks away from the new administration coming in the United States. It's been well documented that there is a threat of tariffs that could be enhanced in China. And let's remember, it's been almost 7 years since the first Trump tariffs hit in 2018, March of 2018. So we've been dealing with much of this for 7 years. If increases occur in China, but also there's a threat that this could also happen in Canada and Mexico. And while I believe that's kind of negotiation bluster from the incoming president, if that happens, that could create some real wrinkles. For instance, Acuity Brands, a $4 billion company, they make 53% of their 53% of their revenues, rather, derive from Mexican-made products in 7 factories. So if there's a Mexican tariff, that could create some real issues for not just Acuity, but also the other big boys that have lots of Mexican manufacturing capabilities. And don't underestimate Canada either, because if there's a Canadian situation, there's lots of great lighting manufacturers, especially on the architectural side, that come from the GTA, the province of Quebec, and British Columbia. You have Access Lighting and Lumenworks and Lumenpulse and Fluxworks, as well as Lidalite out in British Columbia. So there's a long list of Canadian people that could be affected by this as well. They're always dealing with the currency fluctuations, Canadian dollar to US dollar. If this provides another wrinkle, this could be really, really dicey for a lot of components and fixtures coming into the US.
Yeah, and I think on the simplified control system is what I really take out of it is for the end user to want them, it needs to be simple. For the distributor to sell it, it needs to be understandable, and for the manufacturer to stock it, it needs to have fewer SKUs. Especially with tariffs and all that. So they need to simplify their selection down, make it easier, and more sales will come.
I'm just going to add one thing before you read your next prediction, Greg, because I'm the only Canadian in the room. Do Americans ever wonder why America gets to rip up every deal they sell and renegotiate? And nobody else can do that? Like Trump already ripped up NAFTA and replaced it with MCO, the USMCA, whatever it's called, and now he's ripping up his own deal. But anyway, go ahead, Greg.
Do we ever wonder? No, you do the wondering for us. Michael Barber, the president, principal of the lighting practice, he basically wrote in 2025 the challenge of finding the right design staff will persist,
Hmm.
and just a pressing
Hmm.
concern that design professionals aren't entering the market, and
Hmm.
it's going to be harder and harder to find people. Is that is that true, Al? That we're not finding as many lighting designers, or is there nobody entering the lighting design space anymore?
There's an imbalance of demand and supply. And if you don't mind, I'll comment first and then pass it to Michael.
Yeah.
So architectural lighting design is a subset of architecture. On the architecture side, it's been a rough, a year and a half. It was over 18 months of declines in billings for U.S. based architecture firms that ended in November 2024, just a couple months ago. So now that there's an uptick in architecture, but along those lines, architectural lighting designers, they have been busy as heck during this
Hmm.
architectural downturn.
Hmm.
Their services, their expertise is in high
Hmm.
demand, and they're saying some of the things that the trades are saying, where they can't find enough qualified people. So this goes back to, well, what schools are developing people, what curriculums have to. I did my master's, my MBA thesis on sales as a major, or sales as a major topic that's being taught in universities. This was over 20 years ago. There was a short list of less than a dozen schools that offered sales majors at the time. That's increased. We're seeing more schools offer architectural lighting design, but honestly, they pull a lot from interior design, architecture, and theatrical rooted people to pull them into lighting and be inspired by architectural lighting design. So you got to retain staff. Some of the ways that every business needs to retain staff, find some of those strategies, make it a good place to work, reward your people with appreciation and fair compensation. And that's my 2 cents on what Michael Barber just said.
Yeah, I think the root of the problem is that lighting is becoming more and more complicated, and I think AI will make it more and more complicated, and I think circadian is going to make it more and more complicated, and I think darkness restoration and night preservation is going to make it more and more complicated. We're already talking about trying to get the Electrical Safety Authority of Ontario to have to approve all outdoor lighting for dark sky certification or status before entering. So the need for lighting designers is just going to continue to rise, folks. So maybe it's time to think about, if you're not a lighting person, you're not listening to this. But if we can say it outside somewhere, lighting is a good industry to get into. Electrical trades are good to get it. Like, we need you guys. Get in here.
That's it. That's it. You're right. So let's go to the next one. This is from Natalie Rosat. She is the CEO of Foscope, which is a nonprofit organization that calls themselves a think tank on light. Natalie gave the keynote presentation at a recent IES conference a couple years back in New Orleans. And she says she starts with 3 things she wishes she could predict but can't. And those are: I wish I could predict that our neurophysiology will evolve beyond our current demand for and response to light. I wish I could predict we will fully grasp the complex dynamics of all co evolving living and environmental systems on Earth. I wish I could predict we could solely develop and apply best practices at the nanoscale and the global scale. And then she explains why she can't predict each of those things. So for 2025, her prediction is: I am only going to predict and hope that our industry's commitment to social engagement and philanthropy will expand. Greg, do you think the industry's commitment to social engagement and philanthropy will expand in 2025?
I think the more it's talked about in general with anything, the more it will. But I don't know that lighting will be tackled and handled that way. I mean, right now, when it comes to lighting, all anybody thinks about is it allowing me to see what I need to do right now? Do I care about what they need or what that needs or what the environment needs? No, I need to see what I'm doing, and that's it. So, are we ever going to get beyond that? I don't know, but I do know Michael's passionate about this.
I mean, one of the biggest challenges of Elon Musk going to the moon and setting up a space to live there for humans is the circadian rhythm. How is he going to mimic the Earth-based circadian rhythm on the moon on Mars? Sorry, not the moon, Mars. On Mars for humans living on Mars, they're going to all die and go crazy because their circadian rhythms are going to be all screwed up because we're not made to live on Mars, Elon. And I think what Natalie is saying is she's referencing the difficulty that we have. It's almost like humans want to evolve faster than evolution works or something. And lighting's part of that. And I think Natalie's a visionary. I've spoken to her. I've had the honor to have her on a couple podcasts, and I really like the way she thinks. And I think she's right about the things you can't predict. And then in terms of the social engagement, I think the lighting industry could do a better job making itself available to everyone in the community. I think she's right about that. And if people feel more generous in the new year and they want to engage in legitimate philanthropic efforts, I hope alongside with Natalie. I don't know if I'm going to predict it though. We're moving to Rob Duncan, Executive Vice President, Bell McCoy, FRM. Al, you know a lot about agents. Rob's saying that agent consolidation will accelerate. That will result in fewer paths to market for manufacturers and complicated decisions to make. I'm going to say those manufacturers should join Nailed and set up accounts for Nailed members so they can sell another way other than agents. But Al, please.
Well, I think if we had manufacturers on here, that could open up a long debate, Michael. But in any case, what I would say is that manufacturers should support Nailed, but selling to lighting distributors, selling through specifiers, selling to construction companies and end users and developers, it's all part of national accounts. It's all part of what agents are driven to do. And there's only so much market share that a lighting agent can get in any market, whether it's a big market where you are, Michael, like the GTA, or a somewhat big market like Minneapolis where you are, Greg. But there's no agent that's going to get 50, 60, 80% market share. It's going to stay fragmented for the foreseeable future. So if the three of us owned an agency and we wanted to grow, how would we grow with this fragmented setup? We would expand. We would say, okay, you know what? Let's go from Minnesota and the Dakotas and let's move into Wisconsin. And then maybe we move down and take over Illinois. That's what we would do. We would expand our boundaries. And that's what's happening where these lighting agents that, if you talk to lighting agents that founded their companies in the 90s or 20 years ago in the early 2000s, they talk about being very, kind of working out of their car, out of their trunk with a very small scale company. Staying local can still be a successful model, but it's more challenging because the big boys are treating this like a scalable business where they have local people in each territory. The local people on the street matter, knowledgeable about the market dynamics and how jobs are bid and who the customers are. But if you can centralize quotations, customer service, and doing Revit drawings and other application layouts and scheduling, manufacturer visits and all those things can come from a centralized location, and human resources and finance can be out of headquarters. And then you have all these satellite sales offices. That's starting to scale in a way where the big boys can now leverage the manufacturers to take over a huge footprint. Rob's company has been very aggressive in overtaking numerous agents, partnering with a major lighting line from the Southeast. Their agency spans now from the Carolinas, from Florida to Florida, all the way out to Arizona, even up to Kansas City. They're not in Kansas City in lighting yet, but they do have an electrical supply presence there. These footprints are getting huge. And I don't think it's going to stop. And we've heard that comment a couple times.
Yeah, and I don't know enough about how much agents get paid. I have some idea, but sometimes I wonder if the manufacturer just takes it on themselves. If they're going regional anyways, have your own regional rep that works direct for the factory that deals with the people the same way an agent would. Maybe the coverage wouldn't be as good. That might be controversial. I'm not trying to cut out the agent, but I'm just saying what I see some lighting manufacturers that I work with is they don't have agents. They just you deal direct with them, and sometimes you can get right to it.
Before you go to Al's prediction, Greg, I want to ask you a question on this topic, Al. And that there's a lot of local knowledge that agents have, but isn't what Rob's talking about here that we're seeing the leverage shifting from manufacturer back to agent now because of the complexity, because of it's almost like he's saying, when we expand this, we get more leverage. So Joe, you be careful, manufacturers. You make sure you get the right agent, or you're going to have trouble. And isn't that what he's saying? It's more leverage for the agents.
So I don't know if that's what he's saying, but that's definitely what agencies like his are doing.
Yes.
So Rob's agency. So when you think of a lighting agent, we don't have to talk numbers here, but think about like how many millions of sales do they do, right? Maybe 30, 40, 80, 100 million. Rob's agency with that big footprint I mentioned earlier, $2 billion agency. electrical and lighting with a huge footprint. So
Ooh.
now, and you have other agents that are like this. And I remember being a factory guy and hating this setup because they did have leverage. And as a factory guy, you want to have more leverage as the big factory than the agent. But now, yes, now they can say, you know what? We want that manufacturer line for all 3 territories or all 10 territories that we're in. And you know what? If you have an agent that covers, let's just say all of Florida, which is traditionally 5 different markets with, Jacksonville, Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and the Panhandle. If you have one agent covering those whole areas and they suck in Tampa, you're still going to keep them on because they might be, decent or good in those other territories. So you're not going to just fire your Tampa rep. You're gonna keep them all on board, and that's more leverage for them. You're absolutely right, Michael.
All right, on to our half of prediction here from Al Uszynski, the publisher and editor of the Inside Lighting.
Who's that guy? Who's this clown?
Yeah, who is he? As end-of-life LED flat panels increasingly fill dumpsters and landfills, the environmental impact of building material disposal will spark stricter recycling regulations in the U.S. in the second half of this decade. Talked about states like California, Washington, and New York have some ambitious e-waste policies that include recycling targets and incentives and penalties for noncompliance. And it will shift or will compel manufacturers, end users, and contractors to embrace sustainable practices further, driving the industry toward a more circular, environmentally focused future. I mean, that's a hope, Al. Is that a prediction? Is that really where we're going to get?
I'm
And it's
going
actually, I passed
first,
to Michael
Greg.
first.
I'm going
I'm just saying.
first. I'm just like
That's
just
my
jumping in there. Okay, so
Okay, yep.
I'm a subject matter expert in the field of hard to recycle waste. Okay, I own Waste Diversion, waste-diversion.ca. We recycle lots of stuff: paint, batteries, toilets, light bulbs, all sorts of different things. And the circular innovation movement has to come to grips with what garbage is moving. Okay? Like a lot of times I've been on different panels and different things, and they're talking about all these conceptual ideas about what could be done with old light fixtures. Listen, you rip a light fixture out of a building, it's going to the metal recycling factory. Toot sweet. You're never going to take 1,000 troffers out of a building and send them somewhere where they're going to be remanufactured. That's never going to happen. Okay? The only way that light fixture can be preserved, Al, the only way is if it stays in the ceiling the way it used to stay in the ceiling. Anybody that talks about removing 2x4 fixtures, pot lights, anything that's not an heritage antique light fixture that you're going to spend $1,000 each to remove very carefully so it can be retrofitted, and that would be 99.9999999% of all light fixtures out there. If you remove it from the ceiling, there's nothing you can do with it. It gets damaged when it's removed, and you cannot recycle it. It only can become metal recycling. So this idea of circular economy needs to be built in, Al, from the manufacturing process, and the lighting industry right now is doing the exact opposite. It is building light fixtures that cannot be repaired, increasingly and acceleratingly so.
And Michael, that's exactly why I make this prediction. So I can't disagree or argue with what you just said. But what I would say is that the manufacturers are incentivized. The manufacturers love the fact that people aren't buying as many replacement light bulbs as they used to, because now they get to replace the whole fixture. Imagine if Gillette was replacing every dull blade with a brand new razor with a blade. No, we just replaced the blade, right? So in this instance, I do believe that if legislation were to come in, then the whole economics tilt in a different way. So I'm predicting that in the second half of this decade, we will see legislation from one of those progressive states, and this will create a pain point where now the end user is going to say, well, crap, this is going to cost me more money to get the recycling and more management, blah, blah, blah. And this will drive, we've seen some modular solutions pop up that have been interesting and maybe even good, but not enough of them. And I want to draw one quick analogy to another technology that was kind of cool when it came on the scene and was seen as a nice to have and not a must have, but it is now a must have. And that is occupancy sensors. When occupancy sensors were introduced, they were seen as kind of a neat thing. You can shut off a light if you forget to turn the switch off. And then in 1996, Legrand bought WattStopper because they saw the growth in this. And then we saw legislation. And then in 2005, Cooper bought Novitas, and then 3 years later, Acuity bought Sensor Switch, and now just about every national and local code requires buildings of a certain size to have occupancy sensors in certain spaces, indoor and outdoor, and that's what's driving so much of the sale. So imagine if we had legislation that would create this pain point, and then that would foster and drive more modular solutions. That's the answer. I think we all agree on that, and I think we all agree on the underpinned pain points. But yeah, this is a slow roll, and it's definitely a problem that we hope can be addressed.
KeystoneTech.com, Greg Garrick. You got to go to KeystoneTech.com for the big easy.
And someone that will likely look into all this and keep making lighting easy, because it's easy. You can sell more of it. People will use it and buy more. So let's go.
Let's go. KeystoneTech.com. You got light bulbs in a warehouse? Come on, man. NAILD.org. That goes for electrical distributors and lighting distributors and manufacturers that can join as all. We all have. They're all different membership categories, but we love you guys out there. Greg, where do you got to be in May, buddy?
Where you have to be, I'm gonna be, and you better be too, is Light Fair, May 4th through the 8th. Al's gonna be there. We know that. That's not even a question. That's where where it's at.
What do you think Cinco de Mayo in Vegas is like, guys? Cinco de Mayo in Vegas.
Oh, we're gonna find out. 25.
All the cool kids are going to be in Vegas, May 4th to 8th. Cheers, Al Uszynski, Inside Lighting. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys.
I finished mine.